There are some cliches that are baked into this, but once you peel it back, you quickly get away from the cliches.
Today, I am joined by a dear friend of mine, Steve Harris. Steve and I met a number of years ago when we had just both started our HR businesses.
I really appreciate you considering me to be a part of this. It's an interesting topic, high impact.
So for those that don't know you, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing today and a little bit of your background in human resources.
So I've had a few different careers. I started out as a systems analyst in the steel mills. I automated steel mills for a few years, and then I made the illogical step into human resources. Worked in the comp group, moved into the banking industry. Was fortunate enough to have, gee whiz, at least one or two handfuls of different jobs in the HR arena, most of which were really sort of the bridge of HR into the business world. And I evolved out of that into starting my own consulting practice called the People Advantage. And I managed that for 6 years. And we focused on helping businesses articulate their vision, their strategy, their mission, their values, a big piece. And I also helped them kind of figure out how to bring that to life, whether it was through the way they managed their people or maybe the way that they prioritized what their business needed to tackle. So that leads up to kind of the current day. Right now, I hold the title of Chief Administrative Officer, which most people have no idea what that means. And quite frankly, there are some days when I don't know what it means either. But really, the role that I play is about being glue and oil. So where there are situations that we need to make sure that the organization is cohesive and moving forward in the same direction, that's where you'll tend to find me, as well as situations that maybe aren't going quite as well as they should, and a little bit of oil is going to help things move more smoothly.
Do you mind sharing how you describe the purpose of human resources?
I mean, there are some cliches that are baked into this, but once you peel it back, you quickly get away from the cliches. But human resources is arguably the most precious resource that an organization can have, right? So it ought to be committed to making sure that you're maximizing the value of those resources. So that's what I see as the most important role, the highest purpose that human resources group can play in an organization is to figure out how to maximize that. Now, when you start asking questions like, oh, what does that entail? That's when you get out of the world of cliches, right? You start talking about real stuff.
Some of the things in HR feel subjective, right? They're not necessarily specific to a number. It's a feel that your culture has, or whatever you want to describe. Have you experienced that in your consulting and in your current role and in the past?
I'm a sucker for just really good, solid, fundamental leadership, and that it's kind of the role of the leader is to figure out how to operate in the gray area, in those circumstances that it is more of a feel. You may be able to back into measurements to support how you really think about a situation, but at the end of the day, is it really driven by measures? So I think it's just a reality that's the space of HR, but I think it's more the space of leadership in an organization than it is just the HR practice.
And one of the things that I'm trying to get across and get into dialogue about is the responsibility that HR has to those other business leaders to have them understand that dynamic, because and oftentimes HR is brought in to hire you or fire you, right? And that's maybe the limited experience you have.
And we probably both worked in organizations where if HR is in a meeting, man, it changes the meeting, right? And it means something bad's going to happen, or it means we need to watch what we say, or it means that we have to have a meeting after the meeting because we said something we shouldn't have said. Some of that comes with territory, but some of it's unfortunate, kind of toxic, right? And I believe there are a lot of things that HR professionals can do to position themselves to avoid as much of that as possible, to be seen in a different light. I think sometimes it's out of your control to some degree because the organization views human resources in that way. The leadership sets the tone, right? And if that's the projection that they provide to the organization about how they perceive human resources, it could be a tough battle to fight.
Like what are a few of those things you think you can change that perception, or things that organizations can do to not create that stigma that HR is, it's toxic, or it's they're only here to let you go or to be the policy police?
When people are around you and they see how you operate, what do they think your focus is? Right? Are you trying to figure out just how to get 100% of the performance reviews done so you can check that off your box? Or are you talking with leaders or working with managers to help them have the right conversations around performance? So that people can be the best they can be and do the highest value work that they're positioned to be able to do. So I think a lot of that, and this is really hard for many people, and the one that's talking right now falls in that category, right? It's hard to step outside of yourself and see, well, how am I perceived? But I think it's a really good checkpoint for HR professionals to have.
Is there anything in that, like with some of the HR professionals you might have worked with or throughout your career that makes someone in HR stand out to you?
One of them was just the ability to not just carry on themselves, but also facilitate just authentic dialogue, right? I mean, just to be able to, in an unassuming, in a non-threatening way, to be able to just get the right issues out on the table and talk through them objectively.
What do you think the reasons are behind their feeling that they just don't like HR?
I think ties back to the comments about how HR is positioned, right? And at the end of the day, maybe it comes down to trust and a person's perception of the motivations of HR. I really do believe that if the HR professional is taking the time to understand the business, the job, the challenges, the issues, it's not going to totally make misperceptions go away, but it certainly is going to mitigate a lot of that. And the other, we didn't really talk about the C word, courage, but there's a lot of courage involved in making judgments and dealing with the squishy space. And I think that it's also that same courage that allows you to maybe be a little bit vulnerable.
So how would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
Well, one concept that comes to mind is locus of control, right? So HR like a boss. So make sure that you're maximizing your human capital, maximizing the spend on people in an intentional way. So like a boss. So make sure that what you're doing, how you're treating people, how you're spending your dollars is something that you're doing it on purpose. That's what I think of.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So Steve, it was great to spend some time with you. You mentioned a couple things that really stuck out to me. How HR is positioned inside of the company, which is based upon the people that are currently in it, people that were in that legacy role before those in HR, and especially how the executive and leadership team is supporting the human resource function. You talked about the feel that's required in HR to do that job well, and the courage in the gray. I think that was unique to make some of those unique decisions that may not have all the data and facts that you have to base on, and having a true north and being consistent and authentic to that, I think is all those things feel like Steve Harris to me, and why you stand out.
Thanks for thinking of me. This is good stuff, and same back at you, John. It's always good to spend some time with you.
Till next time, everyone out there, we'll keep these conversations going as I work through my journey of finishing the content and getting to a point where we can put this book in front of more than just me, Steve, and my wife. Those are the three that I think have committed to at least reading through the first draft. So thanks so much, everybody.